Put your seatbelts on and get ready for the ride. We're the freaking New York Jets, so we're built for this shit.
Hello and welcome to another episode of In the Trenches with Gang Green. I'm your host, Bubbs. Today is Tuesday, March 11th. Hopefully everybody's having a good day so far today. This is episode 508 of the In the Trenches with Gang Green podcast. I thank you, as always, for joining me. For those tuning in on YouTube, make sure to please like and subscribe. Of course, appreciate all of those tuning in all the different audio podcast platforms. And we've got some more Jets free agency news to discuss today on the podcast, as last night the New York Jets added a safety. Andre Cisco from the Jacksonville Jaguars comes over on a one-year contract. We will break that down today in what has otherwise been a very slow day two of NFL free agency up to this point here, not only for the Jets, but across the NFL. A lot, of course, taking place yesterday. Jets making 3 signings. Lots going on in the NFL today. Very slow day on day 2. So we'll see what happens here the rest of today. And, of course, in the coming days, the rest of the week. As always, though, before we begin, starting with our podcast partners, our friends over at BetUS, America's favorite online sportsbook. If you're looking to get in on any of the sports betting action or any slots and casinos, check out BetUS and use my link in the description of this video to get a 125% sign-up bonus on your first 3 deposits up to $2,000. Also, our friends over at SeatGeek, if you're looking to lock in the best seats and the best deals for any of the best in sports or entertainment, check out SeatGeek, and at checkout, use code BUBSONSPORT for $20 off your purchase. And, of course, our friends over at Huga House, if you want any of their awesome selection of hats, new new arrival sweatshirts, or any of their originals, check them out. Code BUBS for 15% off any purchase. And when you use that code, you'll get 30% off your second hat. So check them out and get yourself some awesome Huga House swag. So as I mentioned last night, Darren Muji and the New York Jets closed out day 1 by signing Andre Cisco. So overall, day 1 was Justin Fields, Brandon Stevens, and Andre Cisco. It is a 1-year deal, $10 million. Cisco coming in 6 foot, 210 pounds, 24 years old, will be 25 in about a week or so from now on March 23rd. So he'll be 25, still on the younger side, was a 3rd-round pick, 65th overall out of Syracuse. An interesting background on Cisco. Grew up in Queens, went to Syracuse, so local player, local guy, grew up a Jet fan, and here he is now entering year 5 of his NFL career. He will be with the New York Jets here for the 2025 season. Spent, of course, the previous 4 years in Jacksonville. And before we really just dive into Cisco himself and what he brings to the table, because I actually do like this signing for the New York Jets, and I think a good price for a guy that's got some good upside. The Jets were getting a very clear roadmap for the Jets from a free agency perspective very early on here. And that roadmap, that path that the New York Jets are taking right now, Darren Muji, Aaron Glenn, and the rest of this new regime, is signing guys that are younger, relatively cheaper options. I would say Stevens, they definitely spent pretty big on a guy that's very unknown, but Fields' contract, when you see the whole breakdown, is cheap for a quarterback. It's only the cap hit is not much here in 2025. And Cisco, of course, is just a 1-year kind of $10 million in a way prove it deal. So the path here for the Jets is clear, and that is signing younger guys that are only, all of them are entering year 5, all of them are still young, right? Cisco's going to be 25 by week 1. Stevens 27, Fields 26. Guys that have upside. And we kind of went into free agency this year, and in a way, we expected that, right? We talked a lot about the Jets have so many needs, offensively and defensively, and they still have a lot of needs, right? They've only addressed corner, safety, and quarterback. You still have to figure out tight end. You still have a massive hole behind Garrett Wilson at receiver. Defensive line, still another safety. So there still is a lot of work that needs to be done here as the rest of free agency rolls on. But you're getting the sign of young players with upside that the coaching staff obviously sees something in him. If they bring him into this scheme, you can get the most out of them and kind of fill out your roster with a bunch of B players with the potential to be A's and really good starters moving forward. That's the roadmap. And I think it's a smart roadmap to take for the Jets in year one, where you have to reset this team and you have so many holes to fill. You don't want to go all in on one position. You have to spread your assets out in many different areas, and that's what they've done so far. I think it's pretty clear there. Now, as for Cisco himself, he's coming off of a down year in Jacksonville in 2024, but this is a guy that really, when you look at his body of work and you look at him right away, his biggest strengths are he's a rangy safety, athletic, good speed, can move around the field, and is a ball hawk. And that's something I think that pops out if you're a Jet fan, because you look at this Jets team last year, they could not get their hands on footballs in the air. They just couldn't. They're not a team that gets a ton of interceptions. Last season especially, they had 4 interceptions, or rather 7 interceptions last season, which was tied for 29th in the NFL. That's the equivalent to 4th least in the NFL with just 7 interceptions. Cisco brings a ball hawking ability dating back to really his days in college. When you look at his career numbers in the NFL, he has 8 interceptions across his 4 seasons. Really 8 interceptions over the last 3, because in his first season, he was primarily in a backup developmental role, didn't get any picks, but 8 picks since 2022. And on top of that, he had 13 interceptions during his time in Syracuse. So really, this is a guy from college and NFL combined, 21 interceptions. So brings a very heavy ball hawking ability to his game, which could certainly benefit the Jets in the back end, because they're not a team that gets many interceptions. They're just not. They are a team that doesn't turn the football over, force many turnovers, rather, on defense. Those are things that need to change this year. They need to force more turnovers. They need to recover more fumbles. They need to get more interceptions. Cisco's a guy that has a knack for getting the football. There are certain guys out there, doesn't always have to be the biggest names, doesn't always have to be the best players, but there are certain guys that just have a knack for getting the football, and they have a knack for the ball has a knack to just find them. Cisco's kind of one of those guys. Now, last year he did struggle a little bit and can be led as a little bit of a concern, because it felt like going into last season, Cisco was on his way to getting an extension after this year with the Jaguars. But the way that last year went, where you saw some struggles, even just in coverage, which is kind of a strength of his, of course, the ball hawking ability. You saw the interceptions drop off. You saw the overall coverage ability of his drop off. This is kind of that 1-year prove it deal for him, where maybe comes in, fits this scheme, Glenn gets the most out of him, and then you get your long-term answer or extend him going into next season, however you want to play that out when 2026 rolls around. Of course, that's a whole different conversation for next year. But that's kind of where you're looking at. You look at last season's stats, 68 total tackles, 1 interception, 7 passes defended. Some of the PFF grades, that's where you see some of those struggles, right? 58.8 overall grade, which was below average. 49.9 pass rush grade doesn't mean a whole lot. You're not asking him to rush the quarterback, but that was below average. His run defense grade was about average, 63.7. And again, that coverage grade, 56.7, was below average, and actually the lowest coverage grade he's ever had in a season. Like I mentioned, in coverage every year, he's been average to well above average in coverage because of his ability to find the football and get interceptions. Last year, that wasn't the case. Just 1 pick in 16 games and had some lapses in coverage. So this is another type of player where you're banking on Glenn, you're banking on this coaching staff, you're banking on Steve Wilks as well. bring him into this system, get the most out of him. He's just 25 years old by the time week 1 will roll around, and maybe you can find a long-term fit. It's kind of a very low-risk, high-reward signing. It's a low risk because it's a cheap contract. It's 1 year. Your high reward is maybe you find a guy here long-term that gets back to playing like he was in 2022 and 2023. Now, the career numbers, 229 tackles, 1.5 sacks. Again, those 8 picks, 24 passes defended. Just some other interception numbers. Was tied first on the Jaguars in interceptions over the last 3 years. Even last year, Jaguars as a team only had 6 picks last year. Cisco had 1. There was a couple players. There were 6 different players that had 1 interception last year. So he wasn't a tie for first. But even 22 and 23 was tied for first. And also 2023, those 4 interceptions that he had were 3rd among all safeties in the NFL. So that's clearly the strength of his game. And a weakness of the Jets. You can get back to that. I think you're looking at somebody that can be productive, right? Look at his 2023 just PFF numbers. 71.5 coverage grade. He gets back to that. It's a signing that should be something we look back on after this year, and it is a swing and a hit as opposed to a swing and a miss. So we'll see how it all plays out. Look, I'll say this about the free agency so far here for the Jets. I don't think anybody should be too surprised this is the path they're taking. They weren't going to go out and spend a ton of money on, and I liked Carlton Davis, but they weren't going to go out and spend a ton of money on Carlton Davis. They weren't going to go out and spend a ton of money on some of these other guys. I think Javon Holland, you could probably make the case they could have gotten, but they're going with the clear, and Holland's still younger. I think you can make the case Holland, but obviously they felt Cisco right path, whatever. They're going with the young options that on paper are kind of Stevens being the most questionable right now. I think most people like Cisco. I think Stevens is the one that's most questionable. Like, you like Fields, you like Cisco, you have a lot of questions about Stevens. It's a lot of money for a guy that's coming off of a really bad year. And you hear a lot of people in Baltimore talk about him, and you kind of question it's a big risk, but it's also a high reward of you unlock something in him where he can be a long-term fit next to Sauce. But with Cisco, again, these guys with high upside, it's your John Simpson routes, right? I know Buffalo Jet fan on Twitter, of course, great Jet content creators, talked a lot about the John Simpson route, right? Young guys. Simpson last year didn't look like a great signing. It was it looked like he was on pace to be the Jets' 5th best offensive lineman. It was kind of meh. And what does he turn out to be? He's a big-time piece for this team moving forward. Can Cisco do that? Can Stevens do that? Only time will tell. Do you unlock something in Fields? Of course, only time will tell. But that's the path the Jets are taking. And when you have a lot of holes to pick up a lot of B's, you can understand it. So let me know what you think about this signing in the comments section down below. And really, all 3 of the Jets signings so far. If you missed it yesterday, we broke down Fields and Stevens yesterday after those signings were made. So check that out. And any other signings that are made, we'll be here talking about it all. I'm hoping one gets done today because it's been a very slow news day. I would like to see a receiver, even if it's Tim Patrick, who I know a lot of Jet fans are split on. That doesn't quite move the needle, but even if it's him, whatever, I would like to see another signing, get another safety, get a defensive lineman in here. You need help next to Quinnen. Still a lot more work to do, so we'll see how it all plays out. But we'll be here, so stay tuned. And as always, until next time, Jets, Jets, Jets.